The Labour Party's list process and debates over Maori presence in charter schools have raised questions about whether its Maori MPs have a strong voice within its caucus. All of its Maori electorate MPs have opted to go off the list, prompting criticism. The list is notable for the absence of Maori in the higher places. And discussion about Maori offending and education have thrown up conflicts that can occur between MPs advocating for Maori and Labour's broader constituency. So, our political editor, Jane Patterson, spoke to some of the party's Maori MPs at Labour's annual Congress about their place in the caucus and the recent controversies.
A senior figure in Labour's Māori caucus, Kelvin Davis, last week floated establishing a prison based on Māori values to help reduce reoffending rates. That was effectively and quickly shot down by the leader Andrew Little, who said while it was an idea worth exploring, it was not party policy. Mr Davis says that's fair enough.
He's just been straight up honest that it isn't Labour policy, but it is on the table, and it's our role to put things out there in the public domain and have discussion around it. It's one thing in opposition to bang on and be critical of the government, but we do actually have to come out with the alternative, with solutions that that for the country, for the well-being of everybody.
The Tamaki Makaurau MP Penny Hinare says Māori MPs are very comfortable with their place within the caucus and their ability to express their views.
As you can imagine, there are always hairy issues that come up, but we've certainly worked together and we're able to voice our opinion collectively, and where we might not all come to an agreement as a Māori caucus, that's fine as well.
Debate around what Labour would do with charter schools, including the one linked to its candidate Willie Jackson, blew up last week. Both Mr Jackson and Mr Hinare said there'd be a strong case for many of the charter schools to stay open under a Labour government, despite the party being opposed to the model. Mr Hinare says representing a Māori constituency, as well as being a Labour MP, means sometimes those two things do bump up against each other.
It naturally does, doesn't it? There are issues that I've often thought, and my support for those Māori educational outcomes, whether it be through charter schools. I'm a big supporter of that, and I often wonder if we're going to cherry pick the good things from charter schools and get rid of the bad ones. I wonder if such a review is done on state schools, where you get rid of the bad ones and keep the good ones. Those are questions that my constituents ask.
Lewis Wall is a Māori MP but holds the general electorate seat of Manurewa. Ms Wall says there is room for open debate in the party, and Māori MPs have the same opportunities to progress ideas as any other caucus member. But she does acknowledge having all of the Māori electorate seat MPs opt off the list means Māori are not well represented at the top of the list.
On the face of it, we haven't provided for Māori, because there isn't a Māori in the top 15. That's the reality, and I think our rationale and justification for that actually has to be seen in the actions of our six incumbent Māori electorate MPs, who did so because A, they have confidence in their own abilities to retain their seats, but B, because they did want to create the space for other Māori to join our Labour caucus.
She says regardless, Labour could end up with Māori MPs comprising up to a third of its caucus after the election. But she says not having senior MPs on the list, but very promising candidates in winnable places, is something for the party to keep in mind next time.
We constructed a list based on a whole lot of knowns from our perspective, but possibly it's not a list that has been easily understood by the general public. And so the party have to look at that. Potentially it's a learning for them.
Andrew Little says any criticisms his Māori MPs do not have an equal voice in the caucus are unfounded. He says all of the MPs fight to have their ideas put forward.
For a leader, it's a balance between saying, OK, we've got to find a way to process that idea and get the best out of it. On the other hand, we've got to demonstrate to the public at large that this is a party that is organised, has got itself together and can make good decisions and is disciplined in doing so. And there's always a bit of a balance in that.
He says he backs his Māori electorate seat MPs in their decision to go off the list and the party's commitment to improving the lot of all Māori. From Parliament for Checkpoint, Jane Patterson.